On a new morning, the maids Deli and Malika went and started checking Mesa if Eric touched her or not last night after he washed her. But Deli told Malika, untouched by some people are bitten. And Malika, look, if something happened last night, it won't be the bottom. From her body is fine. It's clear on Mesa's face that she's not asleep, but she's forced to act and let them touch her body on the grounds that she's sick. So she started saying to herself, it's happened many times. But I feel really dirty today. Maybe because of the shyness that the black-haired guy reminded me of yesterday. And here she opened her eyes as she continued and said to herself, anyway, I noticed something strange again. And here she remembered his looks at her as she said to herself, when I was acting crazy, I didn't really care if the other person was referring to me or not. But the idea of someone laughing at my real self makes me care. You must have thought it was very strange. And here Malika said in anger, didn't he feel excited even when he saw the naked body? Well, who would want to give their seeds to something like this? And here, Deli told her. Anyway, I was told to keep an eye on her for now. At this time, Mesa said to herself, naked body. Now that I think about it, aren't you really okay these days without a single bruise? At this point, and she started watching them while saying to herself, it's dangerous if I don't roll too loud, or causing a big accident that makes everyone frown. So as she walked in front of the maid Deli, she started to say to herself, want to get hurt so badly? Or should I break something very precious? No, I think it would be very difficult to destroy a house that only costs 2 ounces to build a garden fence. So as she moved, she noticed the ladder. Then she looked at the maid Deli, who told her, Princess, let's go together. So she lowered her head as she said to herself, if I control it well, I won't get hurt too hard. Fair enough. Then she approached the stairs while she was continuing and saying to herself, it hurts, but I can't help it. And here she closed her eyes and that's it. She was going to drop herself saying to herself, pretending to lose power in my legs from the first step. But suddenly Eric showed up and grabbed her before she fell. Then he looked at her in tension and shock at what she was going to do, so he said to the maid, Deli, I'll take care of my wife. Today, Lady Deli, go and rest now. And here Mesa took her childish role. But Eric took it to the greenhouse and said, all the birds in the greenhouse have been moved to another place, so you don't have to worry. And by the way, do you really hate birds? And here Eric noticed that she was feeling nervous. So he told her, why is that? Is there a reason to be afraid of birds? And here she said to herself, a long time ago. And here she said, birds ate, I ate. And here Eric said, what did you eat? And here she was annoyed and started to say to herself, how can he bring me here without permission? And Eric, do you feel uncomfortable when you speak? And she keeps talking to herself. Why does he keep annoying me like this? And here Eric said, never mind. You can speak freely since there is no one else here. And here she looked at him nervously as she said to herself, it's not like that. And here when Eric told her, or is it hard for you to talk? Mesa looked at him in amazement, and she says to herself, I'm good at expressing myself in my head, however, words don't seem to come out of my mouth when I try to speak my thoughts out loud. And here Eric told her, or maybe, because it's been a long time since I talked to someone, so the order of words in your mind seems unfamiliar. Am I right? And here Mesa was looking at him and saying to herself, maybe I didn't think about it in depth. And here she felt nervous and continued and said, I'm not sure how to explain that either. But what this man said seems to be true, and Eric. So when you repeat what someone else said, you seem to be doing it well. You should try to express it in words instead of from nodding. However, it's okay to give a short answer. And here Mesa looked at him and she said to herself when look at his serious expression, although I'm reluctant to, I still feel like I have to say something in response to that. So she told him, fair enough. And suddenly when she heard her voice, she put her hands over her mouth immediately, and she feels ashamed and says to herself, "My voice appeared strange. Why does this keep happening?" And that's where Eric said to her, "You'll get better when you keep talking." Then he held her hands as he told her, "Would you like to try a traditional?" When she looked at him, Eric felt nervous as he put her hands on his throat. And he tells her, "Usually a person's throat is around this point. Do you feel it?" The position of the audio tracks changes depending on the pitch. The position in which I do no movement, this is my natural voice. And here she tried to imitate him while he was continuing and telling her, "Your voice will come out more comfortably. Someone taught me that when I was growing up. Would you like to try it now?" And here Mesa tried, and she says to herself, "Puberty." And she started trying, and here Eric said, "Do you have an idea about it now? If you have something you want to say to me, try to say it. It's okay. Just try to talk." And here Mesa told him, "Puberty, what is it?" And Eric, after hearing this, started laughing non-stop. And here Mesa looked at him angrily as she said to herself, "Why is he laughing?" So Eric told her, "I am sorry. I apologize for my rudeness. It's so funny that you chose this to ask it as your first question. Everyone's voice changes about a certain age, and we call that puberty. And it seems like it's the first time you've heard of it. Is there anything else you're curious about? Or anything you like to say?" And here she said to herself as she looked at him, "One thing is important." Then she said what the maid Malika said to him. "Untouched by some people are bitten." But Eric looked at her and said, "Excuse me, I don't get it." And here, Mesa said in herself, "He didn't understand. So I did this, and here." Sure, Eric was shocked by what I did all of a sudden. At the time, she started to say to herself, "He will understand when I do this." But he felt ashamed. And he did it while saying, "Stop, do you understand?" And she says to herself, "Yes, this thing." And Eric shyly lowered his head as he said to her, "Please do not do this again in public." And here Eric was shocked when she told him permission, when to do it. And at the same time, she says to herself, "If we don't have a wedding night ritual soon, I don't know when the king will pull me out again." And here Eric, in shame, said to her, "I need some time." At the time that Mesa, when she saw his face like this, she said to herself, "Why is his face all so red?" And here Eric told her, "We must first get to know each other correctly. After that, I think we can quickly resolve this inconvenience you mentioned." But Mesa felt nervous because she didn't understand anything. And she says to herself, "What does he mean?" And Eric, "Okay then." Then he got up and gave her his hand as he said, "I'll take you for a ride in the greenhouse." And here, Mesa was looking at him, and she was saying to herself, "Now is not the time." But the maid said the king would be watching us, so she gave him her hand and went with him. And she continues and says to herself, "So there shouldn't be any immediate concern about my being dragged before the king tonight." And that's where Eric said to her, "By the way, did you really feel discomfort while walking?" But Mesa smiled at him. And here Eric was shocked and understood and said, "No, even I was deceived. Now that I think about it, I've been tricked." From the start, and Mesa was happy, saying to herself, "For sure, I worked hard to perfect my steps." And here Eric told her, "How did you manage to do this?" And Mesa looked at him and she said to herself, "It's a bit hard to explain. I put pressure on the back of my thigh and legs. I think it's fine. There's no need to say anything, especially since I can't speak." And suddenly Mesa stopped, and when Eric turned to her, Mesa extended her hands to him. And that's where Eric said to her, "Do you want me to carry you?" And he did that while looking at her and saying, "You've walked more than usual today." And Mesa felt comfortable in his arms and closed her eyes as she said to herself, "I feel good. This guy was better than I thought. I feel that this kindness will last longer." And one day before marriage, Mesa was sleeping on the floor, and a nun started saying their lips are staggered and their bodies are intertwined. So Mesa said, "I remember the priestess whispering about the wedding night walk." As a formal measure, It's a strange and scary night process. The priestess reads it in an indifferent tone. And I felt rather strange. It is even rumored that it involves on severe pain below. So I simply thought of it as a very annoying thing. But this man has been postponing them, making excuses since we spoke a few days ago. And that's where Eric said to her, "Do you have something to say?" But Mesa kept looking at him while she was continuing and saying to herself, "Although the man's life is at stake because of the Emperor now, why do I feel like I'm the only one? Worried about this?" So she told him, "Mona, we will get to know you better." And Eric, the what? And here, Mesa kept looking at him while saying to herself, "Is the reason why it was postponed the first night because he wants to cancel this marriage. If all the kindness he has shown me so far is a lie, and if he just procrastinates to get rid of me." At that time, Eric was calling her, and she didn't hear him and kept talking to herself saying, "Or maybe is it possible? Because he is not even satisfied after seeing me naked?" So she felt sad, as she said, "It doesn't matter that everyone is kind to me." Many anxious thoughts flood my mind, hundreds of times a day. So, and here Eric got up in anxiety because she didn't answer him. And she continues and says to herself, "I need to get married in as soon as possible to secure this marriage. I really want to live here. Being here, sometimes it makes me feel like I'm back to those times." At this time, Eric was screaming at her and trying to wake her up. "Do you feel unwell? I've called you many times." But in sadness, she lowered her head.